some panelists is we're going to basically discuss the whole fracking procedure, and we'll get an expert's view on the geology of the fracking process, and then any of you faculty and or students who would like to do some advocacy work. We also have a member here, Brady Russell from Clean Water Action, that is you can make a connection with, and he's going to talk a little bit too about how you can engage in advocacy. So before I get started, I just want to briefly talk to you all about a little bit of the bio of some of the people that will be speaking to us today. Roberta Winters, I almost said Roberts because I don't know Roberta. Roberta Winters is a teacher certified in biology and elementary education. After teaching over 30 years in the Radnor School District, she became increasingly involved with the League of Women Voters. Since 2009, she has served on the board of directors of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania, where she currently coordinates their Marcellus Shale study. And what Roberta is going to do is basically give us an overview of the fracking procedure. And after that, Jim Schmid, if you raise your hand, he's the geologist I mentioned earlier, and he's going to give us the nuts and bolts of what this fracking procedure is all about. What the heck? I'll read his biography now. So he is a biogeographer and a plant ecologist. His academic training is at Columbia University, Phi Beta Kappa, and the University of Chicago. He taught in the Department of Biological Sciences at Barnard College and Columbia University, and then entered environmental consulting and has headed his own firm for 30 years. So Roberta's going to talk first, then Jim is going to talk, and then Brady's going to come up and talk, and at that time I'll read a little bio that about Brady Russell. All right, are we ready to get started? Are we ready to rock and roll? Yeah, let's rock and roll. Take it away, Roberta.
Thank you, David. I don't know if you can hear me or not, okay?
Good.
Now, you're going to find, I'm going to give you like fracking 101. I'm providing a big overview of the picture, and then you'll hear from the experts more on the specifics. Now, as you know, people all over the world are looking for energy to help feed our appetite. And natural gas is one of the places that we're looking because it's an important transition fuel. If you look over here, you can see it's going to help us transition from coal and oil to the more renewable sources of wind, sun, and water. It's also a great fuel because it'll help when the renewable sources are unavailable in case of bad weather or there's just problems and circumstances and not able to meet demand. Now, I think maybe some of you in your courses have learned that the Chinese write the word crisis with two characters. One means opportunity and one means danger. And that really epitomizes what Marcellus Shale is. The extraction of natural gas from Marcellus Shale is a great economic opportunity. It'll provide growth in our financial status. It will reduce our energy independence on foreign oil. And it's basically a very clean burning fuel relative to the other fossil fuels. However, at the same time, there's a big danger, and that is environmental degradation, and particularly our water. Now, the rock of the rock and roll is here to stay that you heard about is the Marcellus Shale. It covers about 2/3 of our state, and it is one of the largest onshore natural gas reserves in the world. It'll supply enough energy for decades to come, and Mr. Schmidt will tell you all about that. The role of our rock and roll is here to stay are the men, the money, and the machines that are rolling into our state. Currently, the men and women are moving into our state mainly from places like Texas and Oklahoma, where natural gas drilling is a way of life. In fact, there's actually scarcity of housing in many of the places where Marcellus Shale is being drilled. Basically, there's no room in the inn. If you go visit in some of the states, you can't find a hotel room, a boarding place, a bed and breakfast. They're filled up. Money is also rolling into the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In fact, leases are running for about $5,000 an acre, and you can get 20% of the royalties. So, of the 12 largest gas companies now have leased more than 5 million acres in our state, and there's billions of dollars coming in from countries abroad, such as Japan, Norway, France, Britain, Singapore, China, and India. So this is a multinational operation. The third big rollers are the heavy tank trucks and gravel loaders and cement mixers that are moving into the sites. In fact, each site becomes its own industrial complex. It brings generators, mobile homes, storage tanks, processing facilities, and even parking lots to hold all of these big trucks. Now, how does the rock that's Marcellus Shale turn into the natural gas that comes on in your house when you turn on the oven or the furnace? That's where fracturing comes into play. And fracturing uses water, sand, and chemicals in the process of splitting the rock to release the trapped gas. And I have just a short video that'll give you a little bit of an idea of what happens. Now, we'll see if it works. Is it going to work?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you can see, we're going through a drilling site here. This is the drill, and this is the pad.
That's better.
We're going to take, they're going to drill down here into the earth. You can watch it. They'll go through aquifers, and they have a drill bit at the end. They sometimes have to replace that several times. They're putting mud and chemicals. They call it mud, but it's water and chemicals. And this is where it's turning. This is called horizontal fracking because they can actually turn the pipe, go about a mile down, turn the pipe, put in this steel pipe, fill it filled with concrete. That's why they need the cement mixers. The concrete flows out and goes back up, making a casing. So there's a concrete casing over the whole thing. They drill through the plug, keep drilling. Again, they're going a mile underground and go even out as far as a mile out. Again, the process is repeated several times, many, many times. But this is just a fast view. Again, concrete fills up. And now they're going to put in something different. These are little explosive devices, and they split the shale, and that's all done electronically. Then electric charges, sending out blasts. Some people aren't sure how far they go up into the shale, but this is the industry version. And then we will see the fracking. This is the water, the chemicals, and the sand being pushed into these cracks. It's under a great deal of pressure. It'll split the rock. You can see it periodically split the rock, and that'll free up the natural gas to come up that pipe and out the top. So that's fracking in a nutshell. Now, this is a fracking picture which shows some of the things that are happening. You can see the tanker trucks up there, the pumper trucks that have to send the sand in. The natural gas that flows out of the well goes into these condensate tanks and storage tanks. And there's also a lot of recovered well can be stored in an open pit. Mr. Schmidt will show you some of those places there. And also carried away by truck. You can see the fissures in the rock, and also the natural gas coming out through the shale and up the pipe. All right. Now, the amount of water consumed in each well is several million gallons, anywhere from 1 to 10 million gallons. And some of the water is used in the drilling process, some of it's used for the actual fracking, and still more is used in Pennsylvania because they've decided to dilute the wastewater and reuse it again. Because we've found a problem because we don't really have any way to treat the wastewater, so if we just keep shoving it down the well, that's a way of handling the problem. Now, the cumulative impact of the water withdrawals from our streams, groundwater, and public facilities is an area of increasing concern, because if you're taking 10 million gallons out of water for every well, and you have tens of thousands of wells, that's a problem, because all the water that goes down will probably never be able to be retrieved in any kind of form that will be fit for human consumption. Now, there's also tons of sand, some of it transported from as far away as the Great Lakes, added to the water, and that acts as a propant. That's a really weird word, but a propant actually props open the shale and holds it open so that the natural gas can escape. And then there are about 15,000 gallons of chemicals that are added to the water and the sand, and these are things like lubricants, biocides, scale inhibitors, oxygen scavengers, and acids. They help them drill easier and also make the fracking and natural gas process work a lot better. Actually, about 240 of these chemicals are highly toxic, even in small quantities. That can be a concern. Now, after this the well is fracked, there's stuff that comes out of the well, in addition to the natural gas. Some of it's production water that comes out when they drill, and that usually has high levels of salt and some other minerals. The fracking, however, adds additional flowback water, so its composition varies depending on the site. So if you're in one part of Pennsylvania, it may look like one thing. If you're in another part, it looks like something else. However, it has lots of salt in it, lots of salt, many times saltier than seawater. And it also has toxic chemicals, heavy metals such as arsenic, and even radioactive waste. Some speculate there are other things that may be coming out that will impact the air and also cause a lot of noise pollution. You can imagine the drilling is a little noisy. And some people think because Pennsylvania has some earthquake potential, it may increase the probability of earthquakes in our state. Water seems to be the biggest problem with the fracking process. And there are several ways in which the water can be degraded. One is by silting and erosion. So when they make the pads, they knock out the forest lands. Sometimes there's problems with erosion. Second, there's faulty drilling practices and improper cement casings. Sometimes they're in a hurry because time is money. So if they don't allow the concrete to set properly, you can have a problem with contamination. And third, there's wastewater that flows back. Currently, it's stored in holding pits, and Mr. Schmidt can show you some pictures of that. And because we have no facilities in the state to handle it, most of it's now sent out of state to facilities, or it's stored in underground in the wells where 90% of it stays. Spills and accidents happen and will continue to occur. In fact, Brady will probably tell you, since 2008, there have been 1,400 accidents. So that's about 1.5 a day at a well site. So that can be a concern. Of course, the land is also a problem. When they create drilling pads, trees are cut, habitats are disrupted. Roads and pipelines are created, often through Pennsylvania's most beautiful forest lands. This results in fragmentation. Those of you who do anything with ecology know that fragmentation can cause the invasion of non-native species, and things like birds are also impacted. There's also new access roads that are built into every pad. And you can imagine with all that heavy truck traffic, the soil becomes compacted and basically impervious in a very short period of time. However, on the positive side, horizontal drilling leaves less of a above ground presence, because you instead of just drilling multiple wells straight down, you can go down straight and then out for a mile. So in essence, what you see on the surface would be far less than what you would see if there were hundreds of thousands of vertical wells. So farmlands will probably look pretty much the same way they have for decades. Air quality is also a concern, because with the trucks, the drilling rigs, the generators, there's millions and millions of gallons of diesel fuel that's going to go into the air. And one of the issues is in Pennsylvania, these areas are fairly remote, so we don't even have air quality monitoring.